Gladiator II, directed by Ridley Scott, returns to ancient Rome decades after the events of the original. The story follows Lucius, played by Paul Mescal, now an adult and wrestling with the legacy of Maximus, Russell Crowe, while navigating a politically fractured empire. Rome is on the brink of rebellion, with its leadership divided and new threats looming, including a power-hungry military figure seeking to seize control. That's Denzel Washington.
Nice.
Yeah, thanks. Lucius finds himself reluctantly drawn into the arena, uncovering buried family secrets and facing the harsh realities of his world. While the film retains the spectacle of brutal gladiatorial combat, it takes on a more theatrical tone, with Rome's leaders portrayed in a heightened, almost flamboyant manner, almost ridiculous manner, frankly, that adds an unexpected layer of campiness to the narrative.
Unexpected.
Yeah. Ooh la la. Though the visuals and combat sequences are as grand as expected, Gladiator 2 walks a fine line between epic and exaggerated, offering a mix of action, political intrigue, and a touch of melodrama. Perhaps more than a touch of melodrama.
Sure.
It's a continuation of the original themes, but with a new perspective that leans more into Rome's chaotic, unpredictable nature. So what did you think of A, the synopsis, and B, the film?
I lost track of all the names, and I just loved listening to you try to say them.
Yeah,
it was the
thanks.
best thing ever.
Great.
Yeah. It made me think about Russell Crowe and his Aussie accent.
Fondly?
Fondly, yeah.
Me too.
Yeah, good. So what do you think of the film?
I really, really didn't like it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I didn't like it as much as the guy who walked out at about the 3/4 mark.
Grumbling.
Grumbling, yeah. Audibly grumbling, like he had to make a statement. But how about you? Where do you stand on the scale of, between me not liking it but staying and him?
Yeah. So I also just stayed, not just because we were going to do an episode on it and I was sitting next to you, but also like it wasn't that bad that I couldn't see the film through, but it was pretty bad. It's not a glowing review from me, unfortunately.
Its problem was that it wasn't consistently terrible.
Right.
Like it would occasionally reel you in and say, okay, maybe we can stick with this. Maybe this is coming good. Maybe Pedro Pascal's sort of look off into the distance has just drawn me in this time.
Yeah.
But then it loses me again.
Yeah. I think it suffers from the fact that it's a sequel to a really great film. And it's not a very different storyline. They've gone for almost the same storyline, but just done it not as well as was done in the original. And so the whole time you're watching it, you're going, oh, this is familiar, but not as good.
This is exactly the same, but not as good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Oh, we're doing that, are we?
Again.
The same thing that we did last time, but not as well or with as convincing performances. Or,
Yeah.
it's so odd. Why would you do that?
Oh, well, many films have, and we'll probably talk about some.
We will. Unfortunately, we will.
I was thinking about where the film lost me, and I think it was in a few points, but we spoke in our last episode, I think, about the start of Heretic.
Yes.
And how that we were a bit uneasy about that. I thought the start of this film was very telling as well in its failure, personally.
Yeah. Tell me more.
Well, tell you more. I actually wish for a film of this length, I wish it had told me more.
Oh, right. Yes.
I felt we just glossed over the relationship with his wife. Like it seemed like just enough that we saw them hanging out the washing or something for 3 seconds, him giving her a kiss, they go off to battle, she dies, and that's not enough for me to really to feel it.
No.
And then straight into this enormous battle, where from memory in Gladiator, you it grounds you a bit more at the start and makes you actually, feel like you know him.
Yeah, I was trying to think, what is the difference? Because you don't really know the wife or the child in the first Gladiator either.
Yeah.
In fact, you know them less, I would say. But I think it's the fact that the film starts with a huge war, which he wins, and you get this real sense that he's bloody tired of it. And then he goes home, to see finally be back on the farm. So I think it's his perspective about like, yes, I'm finally going to go back to my wife and child. And then when he gets there, that's when the devastation happens. Whereas this is sort of flipped. It starts off with the promise of these two have this great, this sort of the story of these two have this great relationship, which you don't actually really see. They're just sort of telling you it's a great relationship in, very rushed strokes. And then the tragedy happens and it just sort of all falls flat.
Yep. Completely. It's like, oh, believe us. This is a love of the ages.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we don't see it.
Yes.
And therefore we don't care, and we continue not to care for the rest of the film.
So what's the lesson there? Is the lesson to do less like Gladiator 1? If that's all if you're just having the wife as a symbol of what he's missing, you know what I mean? Like this one feels like it tries to do more, but then fails, and actually fails because it's tried to do more and done it badly.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
Right.
I think whether or not the wife or whoever it might be, the reason for living is developed or not is probably beside the point. It's more, do you relate to the central character?
Right.
And even if you don't know them, you know that he is, completely drawn and impelled to live his life for her.
Totally. I'd rather see how important this is to him than have this sort of half-baked relationship that they try to get across in like a scene or two.
Yeah.
Totally.
Okay. Well, that's one talking point. There's probably heaps. Do you want to give me one?
Well, can I just say that on every level, our good mate Paul Mescal, who I hear is great in other things, does not at all come close to what Russell Crowe did with his take on the Gladiator. And it's weird because you can see that he's got the masculinity required. He's got the sort of, I imagine a sense like there's a presence about the man.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't come through the camera. It doesn't come across on the same in anywhere near the same way. And like one good example is how well does Russell Crowe nail the discovery of his wife and child when she dies, because he knows how important pivotal that moment is to the whole thing. And then in this film, it just felt pretty lackluster in comparison.
I don't think that's Mescal or whatever his name is fault. He's not as good as Russell Crowe. Russell Crowe was really great in this. It's just thinking about it makes me kind of like Russell Crowe again, because he's he annoys me sometimes as well.
Sure.
But he was great.
Yep.
And Mescal is pretty good. I don't think he's got the script or any of the heft in all the other parts of filmmaking behind him to make him sing. And he's also up against some pretty formidable other characters that, make it hard to be about his story.
Yes.
I'm thinking of two.
Let me give you another example. What's another thing you have to nail in a Gladiator film?
The fight scenes.
Yes. Okay, he does. I think he actually does do well in the fight scenes. What's a third thing you have to nail in a Gladiator film?
The heroic speeches.
Yes, the heroic speeches. Does he nail his heroic speeches in this film?
So you're making my point for me. He doesn't nail them.
No.
But I think the problem is more that there's nothing to bloody nail.
Right.
Because the speeches are crappy.
Speeches aren't as good.
Go through the script and find me a heroic line.
Yeah.
Find me "Are you not entertained?" or whatever he says.
Yeah.
There's nothing in it. It's just all filler that they it's first pass script that they never came back to.
How does that happen? That's an age-old question.
I know, because they used all their budget on those bloody monkeys, those CGI monkeys.
But technically, before the budget is divvied out for the CGI monkeys, there's a budget for the script.
Yeah.
Hopefully, that's the way it works. I don't know.
Look, maybe I'm being cruel, but I think
no, you're right.
It's not that it was awful. It's just that perhaps Gladiator, why it works, or one of the reasons it works, is because it's just got a little bit more depth than a typical, action or epic film.
Yeah.
And that's the layering and bloody the script and the performances and
Yeah.
the nuance. And this one just doesn't have it.
So you were just about to segue into villains or other characters that are up against Paul Mescal or he has to act against. And we have quite a list in this.
Yeah.
In this,
A couple worth talking about.
Absolutely. So I would say the obvious thing from Gladiator that you can then compare to this Gladiator 2 would be the Emperor.
Yes.
Which he's not really, I mean, he becomes an emperor, but, Joaquin Phoenix plays his part beautifully.
Yeah.
And then we have in Gladiator 2, the twins, which I think they were going for decline of the Roman Empire. Excess, thank you. Excess. I think that's what they were going for.
They were going for it, and they nailed excess, but they were too true to excess, and they overdid it.
Sure.
They overdid the bloody excess.
Yeah.
There's a through line because Joaquin's character was also a little bit bloody odd and slimy looking and, creepy and, in comparison to the strong, very serious, Russell Crowe. And it's like time has passed, things have degraded even further. So they wanted to show this opulent ridiculousness of what the empire has become.
Yeah.
And then you got the Great British Bake Off guy doing the
yes,
being the sort of the race caller.
and boy, did he look weird. It took me a little while to recognize him
Yeah.
because he's just lost so much weight.
Well, they all looked weird and sort of creepy, and that was the point. So give
Sure.
them that, but it was out of keeping with a film like this. It just seemed like comic relief.
Yes. What's the town in Hunger Games called? The city in Hunger Games called where all the people are based? It's basically modeled over after the decline of Rome.
Oh, really? Yeah, I don't know, but yeah,
Yes,
that's a good
it's
point.
that. It's almost like they took the characters
Yes.
from Hunger Games, and just dropped them into a Gladiator film
Yeah.
and put togas on them because that's more appropriate to the era.
And it doesn't work. And there's a point at which it really yelled at me that it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And that's bringing in Pedro Pascal now, who I like talking about. 'Cause
Sure.
I'm not sure if other people agree, but I thought he was the heart and soul of the film. I really enjoyed his performance.
He was trying really hard.
He was trying really
He was
hard.
trying hard to bring it all back, to try and ground the whole damn thing somewhere.
Yes, he was
Yeah.
he was the grounding agent.
Yes.
And the moment when he walks into the the emperor's temple, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's not a temple, but
Yeah.
and he's going head to head with these two squirmy little brothers. It was like two completely different films.
Yeah.
Like two characters from different films just going head to head. It's like Wolverine and Deadpool.
Right.
He was Wolverine. These idiots are Deadpool, but it just didn't bloody work.
Okay. Yeah, totally. You know what grounded the original film? We're talking about everything being grounded now, but Joaquin Phoenix Emperor was clearly no sort of masculine match for Maximus, but he wanted to be. And you understood how badly he wanted to be that man and could never be.
Yeah.
And that was the tragedy of his character. And it made you understand who he was and why he was doing what he was doing on some level. Do you understand or what is going on with these two brothers at all and why they're doing anything they're doing? Especially when one of them is just given the sort of free pass of, well, he's just a bit crazy, like he's just insane. So he can do whatever he wants.
Yeah, and that's it. We didn't know him before. We didn't know what he'd been some great genius and become this lunatic.
Yeah.
We don't know anything about their relationship to make the fact that they then turn on each other have any resonance.
Right.
There's nothing about it. They're just caricatures that one kills the other as a plot device to keep the story moving and let Denzel have his way.
Yes. Let's talk about Denzel.
Then let's talk about Denzel.
Yeah.
You go
thoughts
first.
thoughts about Denzel. Where to start? Well, I think for one, he took this on as a way.
As a favor to somebody.
No, I was going to say as a way to bring another big performance. And the thing you keep hearing about is, oh, this is training day in ancient Rome, which I think is kind of accurate. Like the way he goes about this character does feel like that. But I think he was reaching for another training day performance, but trying to bring that intensity to this, slave owner. And it's sort of, it just comes off as a bit ridiculous, and it's hard to take seriously.
Yeah, I'm glad you think that, because I've heard around the traps people saying, "Oh, Denzel, he was riveting. Like, I just wanted it to get back to the Denzel scenes." I like Denzel as much as anybody, like I really do. But again, I thought he didn't fit in the film.
No.
It was like, remember we reviewed Macbeth,
Yeah.
and it was like this, American bloke just popping onto the Globe Theatre, being completely out of place.
Yeah.
He's doing the same now in the Colosseum, where he's great, but he doesn't bloody belong there.
I think we liked him a bit more in Macbeth. We thought he was okay. He was passable in Macbeth. Is that
we?
right? Or were
Well-
we? I can't remember. It's been a while.
I can't remember either, but he was passable in this too. I still
I suppose.
sort of half enjoyed watching him. He took me out of the film,
Yeah.
and into Denzel land.
Yeah. Also, this is a thing. This is a thing that I discovered while watching this. If you have a great villain, someone who's meant to be a great villain, like the arch nemesis, and they're really plaguing your hero horribly the whole way through the thing, you need them to have a great death. And his death is not great. I don't think it's great.
Well,
It could have been, but the way they handled it in the water, and it just got messy. It was messy. It needs to be clean and excellent, like really done well,
well,
That's my opinion.
your opinion is right.
Okay.
But let's go one step back,
Sure.
because it's not even about his death. It's about the fact that he was fighting against the gladiator in the first place.
Right. Doesn't
This-
make sense.
It doesn't make any sense.
No, he's not a gladiator.
He's some old has-been.
Yep.
He hasn't held a sword, as far as we can tell,
Nope.
for years and years, if ever.
Yep.
And now he's up against the greatest rhino sharknado killer
Yeah.
we've ever seen, and they have a real battle. Like it's
Doesn't
tense.
make sense. Yeah, you're right. It should have just been, we're rewriting the script now.
Yeah.
It should have been, he has some great scene, head chopped off.
Yeah.
Instantly, just dead.
Some
He has some great speech, right? That's what I meant to say, not scene.
or some just really pathetic, death where he's-
Sure.
But that goes against the fact that we are kind of rooting for him.
Yeah.
Because we don't know who he is for most of the film, and
Yeah.
so we kind of think he might be a benefactor
Yeah.
of the gladiator. And then of course there's, spoiler alert, there's a twist, and he becomes, we see that he's not all that he was cracked up to be.
Yep. This is one of the places where Gladiator 2 departs from Gladiator 1. They went, oh, imagine if the slave owner guy had sort of desires or, plans to be the new emperor of Rome. Yeah, interesting. Now I'm going to rewrite that ending again. Yeah, so I think for sure they should have been, say they go out to between the two armies, they're under the arch.
Yep, that ridiculous scene. Yep.
Yes. For whatever reason, they're there. So, yes, really awesome final speech. He thinks maybe he's got the army on his side. This is Denzel I'm talking about. And he thinks maybe he's won. And then Paul chops his head off. And that's it.
It's a great ending.
He hasn't won. He just dies instantly because he's lame.
Wow. Could you now rewrite the beginning and the middle?
Okay.
And then we may just have a film.
Sure.